Or you can kiss that miracle goodbye.
Shut up, Ivy. We're about to take you in. Put you in the dirt, soil, and bury you. You are poisoned. Ivy! You must be deweeded. Put you in Arkham. Whew.
Yo, we're here, Ivy.
Yo, DPG!
Look at her. She's been here since.
Hey, how's it going?
What is up?
She still holds great power.
Oh shit. We got
Oh,
the gang now.
Oh snap! What's going on, everybody? The show's just starting up. What is going on?
Then we need another.
All right, who's on? Is Tokyo on?
Let's
Oh,
see.
we got the Columbus crew guy.
We got crew. Looks like we got crew at the moment. We got DPG and SPITTINGFIRE. What's up, everybody?
Hey guys, another Wednesday night, another drama-filled week, I guess.
Oh, well, what happened this week?
Actually, not so much. I think the biggest news out of the Fire camp will probably be that they're having the team locker room sale in a couple of weeks. So,
Are you gonna pick up anything, or are you looking forward to next year's new kits?
well, the locker room, they usually they sell, basically, for anybody that doesn't know, the locker room sales is basically all the kits, all the jerseys, the practice stuff, the cleats, I think, the socks, whatever, everything that players normally wear on the field is pretty much the Fire are gonna sell it. And plus, I think some of their store inventory too. And like they do every year, they tend to have memorabilia there for sale.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you might, I think last year they had like this giant picture of Basti autograph, which looked cool. And I think they wanted $100 for it. So it should be interesting to see what they'll have this year. I know that was one of their caveats, was that, hey, we're going to have autograph memorabilia available for purchase. And if you renew, so get this, if you renew your season tickets on the first day of, I think the first day that they're doing the locker room sale, because it's actually a 3 or 4 day, it's a 3-day event thing. If you renew the first day, they'll give you an autograph, a player autograph item.
Ooh.
So, yeah. So I might stop. I'm probably gonna go. I'm gonna check it out the first day, try to see if I could, get some cool autograph stuff. Definitely not gonna go and break the bank either. So we'll see what I can find. If it's something really cool, something old school, maybe, by all means.
So I do have a topic for us. If there was not too much drama beyond that.
What's your topic?
Dude, sports franchises that should have died, but haven't.
There's a lot of those.
That's what I'm saying. The topic is wide ranging. What would be your first one that you just want to say this? They should be down many leagues, or when I say dead, I mean like maybe relegated into almost non-existence. Like, and you've seen that on some clubs. But that's my question.
You guys want to hear my one of my suggestions I'm going to throw out there?
What's going on? Well, the Columbus crew,
No.
release.
That almost
news.
happened with Precourt moving to Austin.
Well, no, not only that, but I don't know if you know this, James, but the crew announced their end of season roster changes.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently they're not going to renew Santos, and they pretty much give him the "thank you for your service" tweet on Twitter. So I'm guessing he's completely done with the crew. Etienne is another player that the crew are going to let walk. I think he had like 9 goals and 6 assists or something like that. So that might be an interesting pickup for any team in the MLS. Who else am I missing?
Connor, do you think those are good pickups?
I don't know. It depends. Kind of surprised with the Santos thing. I don't know. He announced this week that he has another, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's going to be kid number 4 on the way, I think.
So the Columbus Crew are going to have a 4th kit?
No, I'm talking about Pedro Santos.
Oh, I see. He's having kid number 4. I see.
But then that's why they wouldn't not resign him because he's having kids.
I don't know. The stuff that I'm hearing over here is that it was a mutual agreement between club and player. Santos is 34 years old, started his career in the Portuguesa, or the Portuguese, started his career in Portugal with SC Braga. It wouldn't surprise me if he goes over to Portugal. If he goes to Portugal in January and then plays there for a year or two and then retires.
Sounds about right. Yeah. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Because 34 years old, I think with his history of hamstring injuries, especially this season, I would say that he is towards the twilight of his career. Probably got another year or two left in him, and then he's going to hang up the boots.
Yep, sounds about right. I think we had a similar situation. I mean, it seems like Santos kind of wants to go back to Portugal with his family and finish off his career and just live in Portugal. I think he might be. He's Portuguese, right, or Brazilian? One
I'm
of
not
them.
sure.
Too.
One of those two, though.
Yeah. Remember our old defender, João Mira?
Yes, I do. Yeah. But he follows the club too.
Yeah, he actually, he ended up going back to Portugal also. So
Portugal is a league step down, right? Wouldn't you, from MLS? Wouldn't you say?
No, I wouldn't say that.
In some ways it is, I feel. In some ways it's not. I mean, the clubs that are getting Champions League, Europa League exposure, yes, maybe. But what about like the lower leagues?
Well, the lower leagues,
not the lower leagues, the lower teams. I'm sorry.
I wouldn't even count out the lower teams because imagine if you got to, imagine you're a team that's trying to fight relegation and you got to play against Sporting, So in situations like that, any player, you can even take the American player. Would they rather want to be in Portugal or would they rather want to kick rocks for a team like DC United?
Portugal's beautiful.
Exactly. So, yeah. So there is more competition in Portugal. Obviously, there's, like you mentioned, the Champions League, the Europa League, all different types of venues that, they could increase that competitiveness with the clubs.
So if the league's a step up, why do you guys really think that he's going to be able to get back over there? Or, I mean, like...
I think so.
If he does, he might go for either a relegation battled team, or he might just go to a second division team.
That's right.
I still think Braga.
His old club.
Look at Luis Suarez. Everybody thought he was either going to go to MLS or sign with a top European team. Nope, he went to his childhood club in Uruguay.
Speaking
and
of...
he's still...
I'm sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, I think he's still considering a move to the MLS.
And speaking of Portuguese teams, Sporting tied Tottenham today.
Well, Tottenham drew at the very last second.
Says Archduke Angus. Yeah, I mean, like that. How did Sporting's a good team though? That's where you get some of like the up and coming studs of the league that eventually get sold to the bigger clubs.
But Tottenham's going through a kind of a weird period because they just lost over the weekend against Newcastle, 3-2 at White Hart Lane. Or is it, no, sorry, not 3-2. It was against. I'm sorry.
It was 2-1.
2-1. There you go. 2-1. Yep, 2-1. Versus Newcastle at White Hart Lane. I actually saw that game.
Wow.
That was a really good game.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that game with my dad, and I'm just gonna say this: that first goal from Newcastle, that's a dumb goalkeeper move. That was a very dumb goalkeeping move.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the goalkeeper left the box. He was already outside the penalty area, and he's trying to, pretty much fight for the ball with I forgot the guy's name, but basically, I guess it was like they did the whole shoulder to shoulder thing, and the goalkeeper fell thinking he was gonna get a foul, and the player, got the ball and pretty much just shot it in an empty net. They did the whole VAR situation. They didn't count it as a foul because technically it wasn't. It was the fact that the Loris actually exaggerated on the on the foul, but thankfully the ref saw right through it, counted the goal. And the Tottenham defense was just pretty much horrible that game too. At one point, Newcastle was up 2-0 before the half.
I'm looking at these scores from over the weekend. Arsenal tying Southampton. I thought that Arsenal's been doing well. But Leeds losing to Fulham. I mean, are we starting to see the end of Jesse Marsh at Leeds?
Yes. If he can't right the ship, I think it might be a very short stay for Jesse Marsh. I was actually thinking that over the weekend. Once I saw the scoreline that they lost to Fulham, right?
Yes, Fulham.
Yeah, so I think the best thing that Jesse Marsh has done up to this point is probably win like the first game, which was I believe it was against Chelsea. Was it against? Yeah, it was against Chelsea.
Big win.
And
big
that
win
was
to start off.
Yeah, it was a big win. It was a huge win to start off, and after that, everything just kind of nosedive.
All right. So
maybe he got. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was just gonna add to your point.
No, by all means.
Add that salt and pepper.
So, as somebody who follows the Premier League closely, I'm looking at the table right in front of me. Your bottom three are Nottingham Forest at the bottom, Wolves at 19, and Leeds at 18. So Leeds is currently in a relegation zone. Right now, Leicester City is 2 points ahead of them with 11. The current record for Leeds is 11 matches played, 2 wins, 3 draws, 6 losses, 9 points, 13 goals for, 18 goals against, and a goal differential of -5. Now, when we look at their past 5, Leeds has lost 4 of the last 5, drawing 1, losing 4. So yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I say Marsh is in trouble if they don't find some form quick.
Yeah, because the thing I was gonna mention too is that unlike the MLS, Premier League's teams don't have any patience for bad coaches. Well, I'm not saying Jesse Marsh is a bad coach, but if he can't produce,
inferior. That would be the better word, right?
Yeah, they don't have the Premier League teams don't have patience. If a coach is hasn't won any in like the first 10 or 15 games, they usually get shown the door. It's a very rapid moving league, and they do this all the time. So,
and especially if you don't show results early on, and all he needs is if he gets a win in the next, he might get his walking papers this week after that result. But if he doesn't, he's got 1 game left then, basically.
Yeah, I think he's on the hot seat.
I wouldn't be surprised if they let go of him this week. But also, maybe he's got 1 more game. They're like, if he wins one, he could turn it around. But here's the thing. What happens after he wins one? Do they want to let him go then? Or do they think that he has the ability? Do they believe in his ability to be able to turn this around? I think the fact that he hasn't been fired yet, right? He lost, a couple days ago?
They might be giving him a lot of leeway too, because after all, this is the coach that basically saved them from relegation last season.
Also, that's also, he might get a couple extra little leash, right?
Yeah, so he might get a little bit more leeway. After all, this is a coach that saved Leeds from dropping down to the championship at the very last match. So, so that's also something to think about. But I mean, if he can't do anything in the next couple of weeks, then of course they're gonna let him go. And that should be an interesting point because, in theory, if they let him go before the World Cup, he's pretty much gonna be a free agent, and at that point, you kind of have to wonder, after what happens in the World Cup, whether or not I think at this point I don't see Berhalter being kept around unless the U.S. went on a massive run.
I'll let you finish.
No, I was just gonna say, unless the U.S. men's national team went on a massive run in Qatar, I don't see them keeping Berhalter, and that might open the door for Jesse Marsch
Before the World Cup?
after the World Cup.
After the World Cup.
I'm going to.
This is what Archduke's saying, by the way, in the chat, too. He was saying that he wouldn't be surprised if they let him go right before the international break. And then what you say, wow. What are you thinking there, Connor?
So here's what I'm going to say. No national team coach has lasted more than one World Cup cycle, unless we're excluding Bruce Arena.
Bob Bradley. No. Wait, no, take that back. Yeah, Bruce Arena, you're correct.
Mm-hmm. So, I think this is very optimistic, and this is my positive outlook. I consider myself one of the more positive national team fans out there. I think we're gonna go to the quarterfinals. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. At this point, that should probably, if we get to the quarterfinals, it'll be a successful World Cup run.
Mm-hmm.
But go continue.
And then when we look at the Jesse Marsch situation, some fans are calling for him to be called in to the national team and coach the national team. Would you want a coach who was recently fired from a club coming in and running the national team?
If he's the best American coach, yes.
There's two ways to look at that, though, because prior to him joining Leeds, he has actually had a pretty decent run as a head coach for what was it, an Austrian team?
I think it was. He was at
German
DC United in the early years. Then he was at New York. Then I think it was Red Bull Salzburg, and then he went to Leipzig.
Yeah. So he actually had a good run in Salzburg and in Leipzig. I mean, that's why that's pretty. Those basically that trajectory was pretty much what landed him in Leeds. So, and it's a weird situation because, I mean, you've had, there's head coaches that are only good club coaches, and there's head coaches that are really good national team coaches.
So, go ahead. I was just gonna say, I mean, even if we look past Jesse Marsch, I mean, who else is out there available that could take over this team? What's his name from LAFC that a lot of people are shouting for?
Greg Vanny.
Bocanegra?
No,
Yeah.
is it Greg Vanny?
No, the current LAFC coach.
Yeah,
I can't think of his name.
Isn't it Greg Vanny? Isn't it Vanny?
I don't know.
See, hold on.
Google. That's what I'm
actually.
doing.
I'm sorry, not Greg Vanny. That's Steve Cherundolo.
Yeah, that's yeah.
I wouldn't count him in just yet. To me, Cherundolo's still fairly new to coaching. Because I don't think he's had another gig as a head coach besides LAFC. Let me verify that real quick.
Another shout that I'm seeing is the El Salvador head coach. He's an American. I can't think of his name. Somebody help me out.
Yeah. Hugo Perez?
Yes.
So the thing about Steve Cherundolo is that he's been an assistant. But it also happens that he's been an assistant for teams, and basically he's been an assistant for Hanover and Stuttgart. And at one point, he was an assistant for the U.S. men's national team in 2018. And LAFC, I believe, is his first true head coaching job after Las
Wow.
Vegas Lights. So I wouldn't count him just yet as a potential candidate because he's still relatively new. It's kind of like a similar situation we're having with Ezra. That he's been an assistant pretty much almost all his coaching career
And
until now.
The thing, I don't watch much Chicago Fire because I'm going to be completely honest with you. No offense to you guys, I don't really care. But
It's mutual.
We just the same. Yeah, it's the same about the Columbus. Yeah.
yeah, feelings mutual. What the two games that I watched where you guys played us this year, it looked like to me Ezra Henderson used some of the same tactics that Caleb Porter used because he was a assistant under Caleb Porter for so long. To me, it looked that way. I don't know about you guys. You guys are Chicagoans. I'm not.
So the way I looked at Ezra's tactics was that he, as a head coach, and pretty much in MLS, the first year is usually the freebie year, which means that if you're a new head coach, you have the opportunity, if maybe after the first 5 games things are not working out, you still have a chance to still experiment, use different formations, use different tactics. We did not see that a lot with Ezra. And that was the most frustrating part is because currently on the team, there's certain players that, might not fit best in the current setup. So if, and this is why I say is that, everybody's hyped up of Steve Cherundolo, but keep in mind, this is like his first or second year of coaching LAFC. I believe it's his first year. I'm sorry. It's his first year of coaching LAFC. And, and LAFC has a pretty good setup. So unlike the Fire, who had to pretty much patchwork the whole roster, LAFC has a solid roster. That's not to say that anybody could coach the team. It just happens that, I guess stars align perfectly for him. So he wouldn't be a candidate just yet. I'll give him a couple more seasons before we consider him.
So, for after the World Cup, this is a question for both of you. No head coach has lasted more than one World Cup cycle 4 or 5 years.
Jurgen Klinsmann was actually almost there at one point.
Yes.
If we kept Jurgen Klinsmann, we'd be farther ahead.
Was Klinsmann?
But he was tactically he wasn't. He could. Here's the problem with Klinsmann. Tactically, he did not like or want to use the guys that he had at his disposal. He was like he wanted the guys that were coming up that he was designing for. So he did his tactics weren't designed for the guys he had. He was not a good then coach. He was a good investment coach. He's got us started to and headed in this direction. But if they stuck with them for another 4 years, I don't know if that would even be the right move though. What do you guys think?
I think he was done.
What year was this?
I think he got fired right prior to the 2018 cycle. I think that's the reason why they hired Bruce Arena. So he got fired mid qualification process.
Was he the head coach of the 2014 team?
Yes.
Okay. I was a young lad then, but I remember 2014. I remember the now famous John Brooks goal against Ghana, the first game.
Yep.
It's John Brooks for the USA, that one.
Right.
And I also remember I was actually at a bar in Lincoln Park watching USA versus Portugal. Eating Elvis burger with peanut butter in it.
That sounds fun.
It was. I didn't like it too much, so it was to me it came out a little dry. But yeah, I watched the USA win. We're winning 2-0, and then Portugal tied it at the last 1 or 2 minutes. So yeah. I don't know if Klinsmann will be the right coach in this situation either. And I don't know if I want to bring him back. And a lot of and there's actually the jury's still out on whether, when Germany had that really good run in was it 2010? Or was it when it was Klinsmann? Yeah, 2010, I think. Whether or not it was the assistant coach, Joaquin, was it Lowe, Klinsmann's assistant for Germany, the guy that actually won the World Cup, that led Germany to win the World Cup in 2014. Wondering if that was mostly his tactics.
Low, Jurgi Low.
Jurgi, exactly. So I wonder if that was his tactics that kind of propelled Germany to the next level, and Klinsmann was just there for the ride. So, I'm not saying that Klinsmann was a bad coach, because after all, he did coach Bayern Munich at one point. But I don't know if he'll be the right guy now.
So I wanted to ask you guys this. I see this name being floated around too. You may or may not know him. The current head coach of USL Championship side San Diego Loyal and former and U.S. men's national team legend Landon Donovan. What do you guys think about that? Bringing in a former player and a national team legend.
What's the name?
Landon Donovan.
Honestly, Landon Donovan needs to play in the big leagues before he's even considered. Like, he really needs to coach an MLS team and have success. And I will even say, you know what? If he's successful enough and he goes to Europe and gets a taste of that, then at that point you might be able to consider him as a potential. Like, even now thinking about it, and I used to say this before, even this past couple of weeks, and then James knows this, I used to say Peter Vermees was actually a good candidate for U.S. men's national team. But the thing is that at the time, but the thing is that,
now he's barely good enough for Chicago Fire.
Yeah. So, I'd rather go with a guy like Jesse Marsh. Maybe even, I don't know. I was gonna say Chris Summers, but no, he's been an assistant. So maybe even, you know what? Maybe Greg Vanny too. I'd consider Vanny. No, you know what? Never mind. Don't consider Vanny, because now I'm just getting like Greg Berhalter vibes from Vanny now. So yeah, I think Jesse Marsh should probably be the best option for the 2026 cycle.
Absolutely.
And that's gonna be crucial, because if we wanna, there's a lot of expectation that this team is the so-called golden generation because of where they play, even though they might not play a lot. But there's a lot of expectations that this team could potentially win the World Cup in 2026. Personally, I don't see it yet. I don't think, and I mentioned this before, if you want, to win the World Cup, it takes a very special team.
Like
It takes a team that,
maybe one led by Jim Curtin.
I wouldn't even say that, but I mean, you need a special batch of players.
That's really what it comes down to. The coach is huge, though. Somebody's got to make the pancake. Somebody's got to make the pancake. Somebody can make a pancake from inferior ingredients and make it taste like they're Gordon Ramsay. That's the other thing. That's some coaches, and we need to find a coach like that.
But like, if we look, and if we look past World Cup winning teams, there's always, in each team, there's always been a handful of players that are like star players, that are key players, and every team has had that has won the World Cup. I mean, Argentina had Maradona, Germany had Klinsmann and Mateus, Brazil, of course, you have your Ronaldos, Ronaldinhos. There's always a good batch of players in any given World Cup winning team.
And I don't think that America is at that level.
Exactly. I don't see that currently with the U.S. men's national team.
I don't see that anywhere near. I don't see that in the next two cycles. I mean, unless anything
Exactly.
drastically changes. I mean, we have 80 to 90% of our guys abroad, but they aren't playing important minutes like the French players and the English players and the Spanish players for their various teams. It's just like those tend to be the big national teams, Germany, and those guys are also the best at the best teams in the world, getting the most important minutes at the most critical moments. And you need those guys who are getting those experiences, and the Americans just aren't getting those experiences. Christian Pulisic is barely earning time for Chelsea.
Yeah. And that's like the face of the U.S. men's national team is Christian Pulisic. That's the guy, you know. But he's sitting on the bench in Chelsea. Gio Reyna was another potential guy, but he spends more time, you know, injured than playing. And at that point, then there's a question of who's our striker, because apparently we don't have a consistent striker. And especially one that Greg likes, because, you know, we mentioned last week, he, for some odd reason, he never bothers calling P-Fuck.
Who did he call in for? Did he call P-Folk in for this? I
don't know.
Because I know that he didn't call Vasquez in, which is unfucking believable.
So he did call up Gaga though. The Fire kind of made a big thing about it, which is interesting because I don't. If you're being honest here, that third spot for goalkeeping, you know, that's normally just the guy that's gonna take up a space. That's the guy that's just there for the ride. You know, you think about it, who's gonna benefit more? Sean Johnson or Gaga?
Gaga. I mean, it's no question.
You know, that's. I don't get me wrong. I like Sean Johnson. You know, that he was our goalkeeper for a couple of years. You know, legendary goalkeeper. You know, a lot of guys, a lot of fans, Fire fans, still remember him as a milkman. So, you know, as much as I want, if it were up to me, I'd take both of them. You know, because Sean Johnson is actually doing pretty well right now with NYFC. A lot of good saves over the weekend, by the way.
No way. I know what Sean Johnson is, and we got to prepare for the future.
Okay, well, fine. You know,
Right?
that's fair too.
I
yeah,
agree.
you mean you're right. So, you know, best of luck to Gaga. You know, hopefully, I mean, hopefully, as God is my witness, I hope the guy makes it as a third string goalkeeper for this World Cup. You know, so we'll see. And I'm hoping he, you know, I don't know what's gonna happen to him next year when he joins Chelsea. I guess they're still working on their goalkeeping issues right now with Chelsea. I don't think he's gonna be a starter. If anything, he should probably be loaned out to a championship team to kind of get some of that, you know, English style football experience under his belt. And maybe after a season or maybe a season and a half, maybe call him up to the first team and see what happens. But yeah, where's Tokyo at? I thought he was pretty excited to join. He usually has like two, you know, he actually has really good points on the U.S. men's national team.
Always does. The U.S. men's national team, I'm realistic. They're not good enough. They're not going to be good enough anytime soon. And I don't know what we can do to really complain about for them. Except the other thing is they're in the wrong hands. The U.S. Fed, they're in the wrong hands. The U.S. Fed controls MLS in the wrong hands. MLS needs to be better. How do we fix MLS? Does fixing MLS fix the U.S. men's national team?
No.
No.
It all starts at the top. You start at the top and make your way down. that could have went both ways. I'm sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think if we look at our current, so-called golden generation, a lot of those players are, Christian Pulisic, Gio Reyna, Musa, Tim Weah. Pretty much a big chunk of those players did not go through the MLS. They went through their, through the Borussia Dortmund, youth academies, or the Leo youth academy or PSG, youth academy, whatever. Which, kind of makes you wonder whether or not MLS can actually produce a player that will be a regular starter.
Can America produce a player that could be a regular starter? America, I just don't know. I don't see the conditions that produce soccer players. They talk about these in those soccer economics books. There are players that, in America, there's just too much video games and freedom and bullshit and other crap than there isn't in other nations, I think.
Well, not only that, but, soccer in certain ways is kind of considered like the rich kid sport. And the reason I say this...
No way! What are you for Brazilians, for those poor players?
Oh, no, hold on.
Hockey is the rich man sport where it costs so much money for equipment.
I got it. You gotta let me finish, man. This is the reason why I say this.
Sorry.
So, you look at, let's take, for example, what's a good local? Chicago Magic. Really good youth soccer team, right? Would you in agreement with that, James?
Chicago Magic have been a great Illinois institution for producing. I know players that from Chicago Magic that I've played with, my brother has played with, that made it to MLS, including Ned Grabavoy.
Exactly. Now, how much do you think it costs to put your kid in Chicago Magic?
A few thousand dollars.
Exactly.
Like 2,500, 3,000, 4,000, somewhere in that range.
It's a big chunk of change, right?
That's a big chunk of change. Should make 30, 40, 50, 70, 80K a year. And also you have other kids, you have other expenses, you have other things.
You got to buy the uniform. You probably have to pay for, take the kid out to, to traveling team. So,
well, you're also expected to contribute in some small ways, usually, maybe like this is your week for snacks.
Exactly. So you think about that. That's a couple of $1,000s, just for one season. That's kind of equivalent to what you might pay, playing youth hockey too. You got to buy equipment. You got to buy ice time. That's equivalent to that. And not everybody could afford that. So, and this is the premier youth soccer team in the state of Illinois. This is just the state of Illinois. Can you imagine, elite youth teams or academies out in California and New York and places like that? Probably more expensive and not easily accessible to a lot of families, especially now in this economy. And unfortunately, that's kind of always been the issue with youth teams in America.
It's exclusive, but there are players. Here's the thing, though. There are many times where on every team, I think on every one of those teams, they do have players who have hard needs, special needs. Maybe like there's a few players that might be, kind of given like a spot on the team, kind of in a way, and maybe they have to pay a little less. So that usually happens. Another thing I know is like rides, getting to practice is huge. Sometimes what if you live in Indiana?
Yep. And that's just like the stuff on the surface. Imagine, these youth teams, these elite youth teams probably have like a dietitian available that gives, these players probably get a handout on what to eat and what to avoid eating, and not everybody could afford eating healthy because healthy food is, it's expensive, So,
well,
American players though eat great, and there's players that don't eat great in other nations, but yet they make it.
There's a difference between eating a bowl of beans, or bean soup, and the difference between, eating a $2 burger at McDonald's. Yes, one is very common in poor countries, but the other one is very accessible to families that don't have a whole lot of money to invest in groceries.
Or they're working, and then it can't. It's just there's so many other
Exactly.
impacts. And also like the way the communities are more spread out in America, and while in a lot of other nations, I mean, everybody lives with each other. They tend to be more localized. America is very spread out, and you hear that in the MLS travel from, just week to week.
And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, how youth teams in England, in the Premier League and the Championship teams, and all the way down to like up to the point of the National League. They'll go out if you go try out. If you're a kid, U10 or whatever, and you try out for their youth teams or youth academies, and if they think you have potential, they'll sign you and actually give you money to play for them. That's very
the system over in Europe is so much better for soccer players, but also we know it's rife with abuse.
It is. Not everybody makes it, and there's always a false sense of, success. And we've seen it a lot of times. Kids that go in these academies that apparently they're rated highly and they're gonna be world stars, only for them to retire when they're in their early 20s because pressure got to them. They just didn't pan out as they thought they would.
Or they lose the passion for the game, or injuries mount up.
Exactly. So, it's... And the thing about it is that... Another big thing about it is that soccer's not that popular in America. And when you compare it to the NBA or football.
Football's king in the United States.
But I also don't think that football's getting the best players, but it's a small pool. But football tends to be getting the best and the greatest athletes.
Although I feel that might be changing eventually, because now, with concussion protocols, and I mean, it can't be in any sports, but it's more prevalent in football.
I don't see it happening. I think that youth numbers for football, I wonder about youth numbers for football. It's still the good programs, it'll still be there. It's still going to be desirable. And football is just growing. Soccer is amazing. It's the best. It's easy. It's cheap for everybody else but Americans. And that's a problem.
I mean, honestly, I would probably steer away my kid away from football.
Oh, yeah, for sure. No way. No way do I want my kid playing football.
Exactly. That's, try baseball. Soccer or baseball. Maybe basketball if you're tall enough. But that's the thing is that, youth soccer not only is expensive, but, it's not as popular as Pee-wee football or,
Pop
youth
Warner
baseball.
football.
Huh?
Pop Warner. You forgot about that?
No, that too. It's and don't get me wrong, there are youth soccer teams out there that are not that expensive, like your local park district or your local Sunday, youth leagues, whatnot. But a lot of times, those players don't get any exposure. You don't have any scouts going out to these little, amateur, youth leagues to go look at players. And those are the kind of players that fall through the crack. I mean, James, we've talked about this before, how in the city of Chicago, there's a lot of talented soccer players.
I've played with some of them, and it's just like amazing when you play with like a little kid who like destroys you and your buddies, and you're already in like a travel soccer. Like, what happened? It makes you wonder what happened. What?
Yeah. Why is this kid not in the academy?
Why is he not the next contributor? Why is this guy who I know his name not the next Christian Pulisic? Why is he not out there? Why are some of these other players, talented players who I've played with, no longer interested? I also hear a lot from a lot of players, like, they don't live and sleep the game like other players do, and the culture in America is just not conducive to that.
You also got to think, how many of our current players were born outside the United States? Musa.
Jermaine
I think.
Jones.
I'm saying
You know,
current.
Curry, like Musa. I think is
Well,
he
yeah.
the only? Isn't it? Wasn't Tim Weah born in the U.S.? That's why he was eligible. Because I mean, his dad is from Liberia, and his dad played in France, or AC Milan, or Italy.
Well, wasn't Musa born in Spain?
Musa might have been born in Spain. I think Musa might be the only one, but I know what you're talking about. I know what exactly. And this has been a kind of a prevalent issue for like the past 10 years. Not an issue per se, but when we bring up players that were born in Germany and grew up in Germany, but then they're eligible for the U.S. We're seeing that a little bit less now, though. Not as prevalent as during the.
Well, Ricardo Pepi. I forgot about Pepi. He was born in Mexico.
Wasn't he born in Dallas? Oh, yeah, he was. But he grew up in Dallas, though, right? Because his dad played for the Dallas Burn.
Well, he was eligible to play for.
He's
Mexico
actually from
too.
Colombia. He's actually from Colombia.
He is?
Yeah. No, I'm sorry, not Pepe. I'm talking about Ferreira.
Ferreira?
Yeah.
I wonder how he
His
got.
dad used to play in Dallas.
Oh.
Pepe might have been. Let me see.
I think Pepe was Mexico.
His parents are from Mexico. I don't know if he himself was born in Mexico. He was actually born in El Paso.
But since his parents are both Mexican, that made him eligible for the Mexican national team?
Yeah. So
Is
if
that
your
how that
parents are,
works?
yeah, that's how it works. So if your parents are, if they were born in Mexico or Germany or France or wherever, and you were born here, you're still eligible to play for your parents' home nation.
Okay, so if I was a star player, let's say both of my parents were from Spain, but I was born here, would I be eligible to play for the U.S. and the Spanish national team?
You only could pick one, but yes, you have
I
two
know.
options.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you could. I think up to the point, you could actually play for like the Spanish youth teams. Up until the point that it becomes a full-fledged national team. At that point, you have to make a choice: USA or Spain. And that's actually a really important choice because you have to wonder, which, let's say you're a striker and Spain, has like 10, 5 different strikers in their national team pool. You're gonna have to compete with those guys, or you could take your chances and be the star striker for the U.S. men's national team. That's.
Well, Jonathan David plays for Canada, and he's worth $50 million on transfer market. He's the striker for Canada.
What about Alphonso Davies?
Alphonso Davies, the left back. How come the two best players for Canada are probably better than the two best players for America? Do you guys agree?
Yeah.
I mean, who are the two best players for America? If those are Canada's two best players,
Pulisic, Reina.
I'd rather have Davies. And David.
Let's see what we got. Well, I mean, so I'm looking on.
World.
This is me. I'm looking at Wikipedia right now, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm llooking at the recent call-ups. So in a striker role, we have Christian Pulisic, we have Brendan Aronson, we have Josh Sargent, we have Gio Reyna, Ricardo Pepi, Tim Weah, Haji Wright, Jordan Pefok, Gyasi Sardes, Taylor Booth, and Cade Cowell.
I forgot to mention, Anton Robinson was born in England. I forgot to mention that part when we were talking about.
Oh yeah, okay. So Jesus Ferreira was born in Colombia, but like I mentioned before, his dad played for Dallas, You know, and he grew up in. I guess he grew up in Dallas. So, yeah, he was eligible for the U.S. men's national team. But yeah, I'm looking. What about Luca de la Torre? Was born in California. What about Tillman? Malik Tillman was born in Germany. Jonas Musa was born in New York. Go figure. He wasn't born in Spain. He was actually born in New York. Let's see who else. Cameron Carter Vickers was born in England. Let's see who else. Dest was born in Holland.
They had to
in the
recruit him.
Netherlands. Yeah.
That was a hard recruit. And they're like, hey, you'll never play for your Belgium national team. Why don't you come play for America?
Yeah.
That's the pitch.
So
I mean, would
That's a-
Serginho Dest